Hello everyone, it's Jen. Welcome back to another project for Not2Shabby Shop. Today I'm creating a Slimline card with the Savanna Safari stamp by Sunny Studio. This is from their new release. Lots of cute little critters and some great sayings here. So we're going to start off by coloring, and today I'm using my Ohuhu brush tip markers. And what I love about these markers is they are super affordable, and unlike many of the affordable markers on the market that have the bullet tip, these ones have the brush marker similar to the end of a Copic marker. So as always, I have the colors listed to the left-hand side of the screen from darkest at the top to the lightest color on the bottom. I'm using a 3-color combination for the body of the giraffe. My darkest is the YR1, my midtone is the YR33, and then my lightest is the Y2. So you can see here I started out with my darkest marker just mapping to the outside of the giraffe where I wanted the darkest color to be. I wasn't really worried about the smaller spots on his back as I was coloring his body. I knew that I wanted to have the spots darker color and that color would just go right over top, so I didn't have to worry too much about that. So for those brown areas or spots on the giraffe, I'm using 120, which is actually black. I'm using those for the bottom of his feet as well. And then for the brown colors, I'm using BR1, BR2, and then I'm bringing in a YR1. So I'm just adding some of those darkest colors mostly to the bottom area of the spots, but as I moved towards the back of the neck, I sort of had those colors along that line of his body. So I'm just going through, I started again with my darkest marker and then blended that out with the BR1. Now I'm working on the BR2. And for his nose, I didn't add any of the black color. I started with the BR1 and then worked my way down just so that his nose wasn't as dark as the rest of him. And you can see I colored in the little hair on the back, that lighter shade as well. So moving on to the zebra, I'm bringing that black marker back out, the 120. And then I'm using the CG007 and the CG5. And I'm starting off here with the black stripes on the zebra. Now, if you want to make sure you don't make any mistakes here, I would suggest using a light gray marker, and you can go ahead and map out that black area by coloring in all those stripes first. Just might help you a little bit with making sure you don't add black to an area you don't want it. I did miss one of the stripes to the bottom part of his belly, but I will catch that here in a second. I'm also coloring the bird at the same time because I wanted his body to be black as well. And so while I had the markers out, I decided to go ahead and color him at the same time. So for the nose, I'm just going to add the shading to either side. For his hair on top of his head, I'm just adding that darkest shadow by his ear there, which would cast a shadow back onto his hair. I'm not sure if it's called a mane on a zebra or not. And then I can just work my way on the stripes. And these markers are fantastic. They really blend well and the bristles are really smooth. So if you're looking for an affordable marker other than Copics and you want the brush tip, I would recommend these markers, and I will link them below, as well as all the other products that I'm using in today's video. So for the body, I want him to be white, but I do want to add a little bit of shading here, so I'm using the CG2 and the CG00. Some of the numbers on the marker caps are really tiny and hard to see. And then I'm going to blend that out with the 0 marker, which is the blender marker. So it's just pure alcohol and will help move that ink and blend it nicely. So for the belly of the hippo, I'm going to use the same color combination, and for his body, I'm going to use the CG5, the CG04, CG2, and then the CG00 to blend that out. Again, I'm working with my darkest marker here, just adding some shadows behind his head to the bottom part of his body, and the back legs there would be the darkest because they're to the back under his belly. Also just going to add a little bit of that darker color along the bottom part of his belly there and up towards his tail. So once I get that darkest marker down, I do blend that out with the CG04 and then coming in with the CG2. Now with the grays, I do find there's a bit of a difference between the 04 and the 2, but I'm just going to lay out all this color here as one layer, and then I'm actually going to come back in and do a second layer because right now you can see it is a little bit blotchy. So here I'm coming back with this CG04. You can see how much that dark marker really pushed back. I'm not adding any more of the darkest color. And here I'm just doing a little bit of a tip-to-tip technique where I'm taking my CG2 and touching that to the 04 marker just to get a better blend where these two markers meet. Then I'm going to bring that CG2 in here and then just leaving a little tiny area for that lightest marker. Now for the beak of the bird, for the bottom I'm using YR5 and YR3. I added a little bit of that YR3 to the portion closest to his face and then blended that out with a couple of the yellow markers. And now I'm moving on to the lion. I love the little smile on his face. It's so cute. So for his body, I'm using YR2, Y2, and Y3. Again, using that darkest marker, the YR2, to map out where I want those darkest areas to be, and then I'll blend that out with the Y2, and then bringing in that lighter yellow marker, the Y3, blending that all together. And although these are similar colors to the giraffe, bringing in that light Y3 gives his body a different color than the giraffe. It's a slight variation, but you can notice the difference when you see them up close in person. So just adding a second layer to his body as well, only coming back with that YR2 and the mid-tone. For his mane, I wanted it to be darker than his body. I'm using the BR1, the BR2, and YR1. So I'm adding the darkest shades here around his face and behind his ears, and then to the top of his tail. I'm blending that out with the mid-tone marker, and then I will go over the entire area there with that YR1, that lightest color that I'm using. And I get a really smooth blend here with that color combination. For his nose, I'm using the 120 and the CG007, I believe. And then I'm using the R12 for their cheeks. I'm going to use a black glaze pen for their eyes, and now I'm ready to start my background. So I just went ahead and used one of my infinity circle dies here to cut out a round circle out of masking paper. And I'm going to do a sunset safari sky here. I started out with the fossilized amber around the sun. I wanted to make sure that I had that circular shape, even though I am eventually going to peel up that mask and add more yellow to the center. Without that mask, I wouldn't get that definition of the circle. So the second color I used was the ripe persimmon, and then I'm using abandoned coral, which is more of a corally red color. Now, as I started laying down the abandoned coral, I felt like the ripe persimmon was just blending a little bit too much. So I'm going to trade that one in for the carved pumpkin, which gives me more of a nice bright orange look. Almost looks yellow in the video here against the abandoned coral, but it is definitely more of an orangey tone. And once I lay down a little bit more of that yellow in the center, you'll really see the difference. And I feel like this gave me the look I was going for over the first color that I chose. So I'm just working my way around my card panel here. So this card panel is cut at 8.5 by 3.5. Yes. So that's what I'm using as the panel for my Slimline card, which is just a long, skinny card. So here's where I pulled up that mask carefully, and I wanted my sun to be yellow, so I am adding that fossilized amber to the center, and I'm going to continue to blend that out. Just going back and forth with the colors until I get the blended look that I'm going for. I don't have to worry about bringing the colors all the way down to the bottom, as I am going to add a piece of bordered grass to the bottom for my little critters to stand on. And I'm just ink blending on a laminated piece of cardstock, so 8.5 by 11 cardstock. I just run it through my laminator, and it gives me a perfect slick surface for ink blending when I don't want to pull out my Tim Holtz glass mat. So that's a helpful tip if you have a laminator and just want something easy. It's also really easy to travel with as well, whether that's out and about or just from one area of your house to another. So I have my panel done. Here's where I'm going to bring in this grassy border. This is from the Trinity Stamps Slimline collection that they have. And I just cut it out of some black cardstock. I love that it has that little stitched detailing. And I think this is the perfect touch to finish off the background for my scene. So I'm going to start adding on my critters. I wasn't sure if I wanted to have some with their feet kind of behind that grass, but in the end I decided to have them all in front. And so here's my placement. I wanted to have the lion in the center, separated from the yellow-orange color of the giraffe, but you can see here I dropped my zebra with adhesive on it, and I have a big smudge on the background of my card. So I'm going to have to switch this up, and now I have the lion and the giraffe side by side. I would have preferred to have those two colors spread out, but mistakes happen and I was not about to start this card over. So it is what it is. There's usually a fix for everything with card making, so I didn't worry about it too much. So I just switched those up, having the elephant now to the farthest side on the left. And then I'm going to balance that gray color out with the hippo to the farthest on the right. I already had that zebra in place. If I hadn't, then I would have switched the zebra with the lion just to balance out that color. I'm going to add my little bird on top of the hippo, and I think that brings some nice height to that right hand side to make it look a little bit more balanced with the height of the elephant on the left hand side. I'm just going to add a stamp block here and let those sit for a bit, and then I'm going to work on my sentiment. I'm using the sentiment "I hope your day is wild" from the stamp set. Just using my Versafine Clair Nocturne ink there, and I'm going to add my little exclamation mark. And then there's 3 different sizes of hearts in this stamp set. So I'm going to use all 3 sizes and just add these to my background. I like how it pulls up the black from the bottom of the card into the background. Now my Distress Oxide was still a little bit wet or hadn't dried completely, so my coverage with those hearts weren't great. So I brought in my black glaze pen and I just went over the hearts, and this gives a really nice shiny raise effect. And I think this is one of those happy accidents. I really love the glossy look that this gave to the hearts and my background. Once I get that done, I'm going to bring in a white gel pen, and I'm just going to add some highlights on to my little critters. These guys are so cute with their little smiles, and I have so many ideas for this stamp set. Today I'm sharing the Slimline card, but please let me know if you want to see more with this stamp set. So here I'm just going to add my panel onto my card base. So with the Slimlines, the easiest way is to keep your 8.5 by 11 cardstock the size it is at the 8.5 by 11, and then at the 8.5, and then on the 11-inch side, you just want to cut that down to 7 and score that at 3.5, and then you have the perfect Slimline card. So I really hope that you've enjoyed this card today. Let me know down below if you've tried a Slimline card. Can't wait to chat with you in the comments. Here's a couple more videos. Until next time. Thanks everybody. Have a fabulous day, and I will see you soon. Bye.